Hi, welcome to the Scotty P podcast, man. I'm here today with a good friend of mine, Conrad Spangler. Good to have you on, man. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, Conrad Spangler, man, you first served in the Navy, or was it the Army? I thought you switched to the Marines after you joined.
I could give the little Reader's Digest version of it. I went in the Marines right out of high school. So graduated Friday. Monday I was gone. I was in boot camp. That was for 6 years. So I did the infantry most of the time, 20 Palms, 1st Battalion, 7th Marines. 6 years in the Marines, I just kind of looked at like what I was getting paid, what officers were getting paid for less. I was like, if I'm gonna keep doing this, I'm gonna go be an officer. So I got out, went to college, first year community college back in my hometown, Iowa City. Did that for a year and a half, transferred to the University of Iowa, did Air Force ROTC while I was there. And they didn't have the Navy ROTC to go back in the Marines. So it was kind of pick the Army, which I just was kind of disgusted by the Army being in the Marines. So I was like, well, I'll do Air Force. Whenever we flew out different places, the Air Force always had better gyms, they had better chow halls.
Always.
Everything looked nicer. So I was like, maybe I'll take it easy for a little while. So did the Air Force ROTC in college, graduated, went to the Air Force, and that ended up being for 7 years. So, I mean, the Air Force, that was in Space Command. So that was like completely opposite for the Marines, not being in the field. The Marines, I never touched a computer once, not one time. And then the Air Force, I'm sitting behind a computer nonstop, 24 hours. Dang. So just sitting behind a computer was so unfulfilling to me. I just started putting in my paperwork to go into the Army. The only thing that kept me in the Air Force for so long was I did the Air Force wrestling team for 7 years. So if I hadn't been involved with the team, I would have transferred years before that. So put in all the paperwork, transferred, ended up doing 11 years in the Army. So around 24 years, when I was in ROTC, there was some reserve time overlap with the ROTC. So retired in 2020. So that's 30 years total of Marines, Air Force, Army, some ROTC and reserves thrown in there. So I haven't been out of the military at a 30-year point since I was 18 until 4 years ago.
Dang it.
So there it is.
Yeah, well, I remember that you said that you had transferred to the Marines. I thought that it was one of the other ones, and then you went into the Marines.
Yeah.
But man, yeah.
And now my wife's going into the Navy. Side note, I'm swearing her in tonight as a lieutenant in the Navy. So she's graduating from medical school officially today. I'm swearing her in. Apparently I can do that. Retired officer. I have to put on my old uniform. Felt a little weird about that, but putting on the uniform, I can swear her in, and she's going to be officially in the Navy today.
Dang, that's
so we got
crazy.
All four covered.
Y'all doing that today?
Yeah. Today, yeah.
Oh man, and she hasn't been a part of the service yet. So
no, it was in like the medical program where the Navy paid for her school, but she was kind of in some sort of reserve status. So now she's going to be officially on active duty, lieutenant, which is 03, captain, and all the other services.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, starting at 03. That's cool, man. You have a wild story, and so. I'd also like to talk about like when you started wrestling. Were you wrestling as a kid, and then you're like wrestling the whole time you're in the service?
Yeah, I actually got a little bit later started. I was born in Iowa City, moved around a lot when I was a kid, moved back later, 6th, 7th grade, something like that. So I didn't start wrestling until 8th grade, which in Iowa, you're behind by like 5 years. So I mean, I was kind of getting my ass kicked. My kids have been going to all these little kids tournaments everywhere around Iowa. So I got a little late start to wrestling, but picked it up pretty quick. So high school, all the way through high school, then went in the Marines, and I went to the Marine Corps trials camp for a couple weeks, finished second, which qualified me to go to the team, but my unit didn't release me. So there was a couple week period I wrestled, but until I got out and walked on the Iowa wrestling team, I had been out of wrestling for 7.5 years. So they didn't know who the hell I was. So when I walked in that room, they're like, okay, we'll just see what happens. So I wrestled all the way through college, graduated, and my first assignment, I got assigned to Colorado Springs, where the Olympic Training Center is, which is also where the Army headquarters wrestling is at. So they have their full-time team. They have a separate facility.
Dang.
The Air Force, we just trained at the Olympic Training Center if we were a member of the Air Force wrestling team. So we trained with all the top guys, and we focus on Greco-Roman instead of freestyle. So there's freestyle at the Olympic Training Center, Greco. We focused on Greco. So every year we would have a trial camp, or we'd bring in 30 people. We'd cut like 10 on the first day, doing a bunch of stuff that make people quit. So we'd cut it down to 20 and then kind of eliminate another 10 and have a team of about 12 people for the remainder 2 months. And we would do that anywhere. We'd go to Mountain Home, Idaho, or keep it in Colorado Springs, but they'd move us into a hotel somewhere where there were no distractions. So we weren't staying at home. We were staying in a hotel, just training 3 times a day. And, so did that for 7 years, switched to the Army, went to the Army team, which is, they have their team in Colorado Springs. So once I switched in the Army, they send you to a regular assignment. That unit releases you to the Army, all Army, and they have you until they decide they don't want you. So I was there for about 3.5 months until I got hurt. And, you know, most places when you get hurt, you get like to sit on the side, ride the bike a little bit. There's nobody riding the bike. On the Army wrestling team, if you can't be on the mat and you can't perform, see ya. They send you home. Dang. So I popped my elbow, had to have surgery on it, and I was on a plane the next day after I got my MRI.
Dang.
Popped it, went to the hospital in Fort Carson that night. Coaches said, can't wrestle in nationals, got a flight for you tomorrow. So that was the end of my wrestling career in 2010. Never wrestled again, never competed again until 2020 after I got here. So that was it.
Yeah, dude. The Army team. Yeah. So who are they wrestling? Because I really never even heard about them, but I know they got to be savages.
Yeah. So there's the academy teams, the Air Force, the Navy, the Army. They all have their academy teams that wrestle college wrestling. So they're separate NCAA, and then there's the all Army, all Navy, all Air Force teams, all Marine teams. So they all compete in freestyle and Greco. Usually they focus on Greco. And the Olympic trials was actually just this weekend. And if you look at the Greco-Roman brackets, full of Army, Air Force, Marines, most of the finals in Greco-Roman were Army guy against Army guy, first string guy against second string guy. So they made the Olympic team. I don't know how many Army guys made the Olympic team, but they dominate. The Army wrestling team dominates international Greco. So they're sending 3 or 4 guys to the Olympics.
And I'm guessing that's why they focus on Greco, because it's international, whereas freestyle is not.
Yeah. And if you focus on just Greco, you can kind of really develop people to be really good at Greco. In freestyle, it's closer to college wrestling. So you get a lot of college wrestlers come out, they go freestyle. They haven't practiced any Greco. So the armed forces, you know, like, we're just going to focus on Greco and we're going to dominate Greco. So when you see Greco, a lot of them are guys from the military services, and that's your whole job. So the Army, if you go to the all Army team, they keep you. You don't have a job. There were guys on that team 20 years that had never done a job. They were just there wrestling. The Air Force is a little bit different. So you have a regular job, and then you go to the camp for 3 months. So you do a camp, do armed forces, you do nationals. If you qualify for the world team trials or Olympic trials at one of those events, you continue wrestling through the Olympic trials. If you make the Olympic team, then you stay on orders. But then if you don't qualify at nationals, you go back to your unit. So a lot of people were stationed all over the place. And our coach got a lot of guys stationed in Colorado Springs. So even when they went back to their normal job, they could still go train at the Olympic Training Center and keep up the training. So while I was still working, I was still able to practice at the OTC 3 times a week, usually.
Oh, yeah. And so Greco, you're not doing any shots, right? You're not doing double legs?
No.
Right. Because I noticed about your wrestling, you never shoot. You're a lot of upper body. I can't get to your legs, but
that's all it is. And if you just all Greco standing straight up, people are going to take you down. So I mean, I have the college wrestling background to know how to defend legs, but then I can raise my stance up a little bit to get into Greco positions that most people, even college wrestlers, aren't used to, but especially Jiu-Jitsu guys aren't used to a Greco style, which translates great to Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah. Man, no, one of the first guys that beat me up in competition, I think like the first match I lost in my first competition ever was a Marine Corps team guy.
Oh, yeah.
And a Greco guy. And I just remember my coach telling me at the time, he was like, dude, don't beat yourself up. That guy does like all the Greco tournaments, everything. He's a savage. And I just remember being like, Greco, I've never even, what is that? But he got double underhooks planting me. And then I kept like spinning, like getting out of the positions, but he went from back to mount until he finally
so he knew some Jiu-Jitsu on top of knowing Greco.
On top of the Greco.
That gets a little dangerous. Yeah, when I had never wrestled Greco in my life until I got out to Colorado Springs in September 2001, and my coach took me to the Olympic Training Center. Basically just dropped me off there and let me sink or swim. And I didn't know any of the positions. Got my ass whooped on the first day by some guy. I didn't know what Greco was, just pushing me around. The second day, they had all left for a tournament, so there was only one of the coaches was there, Steve Frazier, who was a '84 Olympic gold medalist in Greco, and he was probably close to 50, maybe even my age, and he just beat the hell out of me for over an hour and a half. And probably I would call it torture. It wasn't even like he was just beating me back down in wrestling. He was like torturing me. He was doing like what I found out was his specialty, a front headlock, and he would just roll you. And I was choking and screaming and gurgling, and he would just beat the crap out of me. Came back the third day, and it was just two coaches and Rulon Gardner, who won the Olympic gold medal in 2000, and he was just coming back from an accident where he got lost in a snowbill, lost a toe, but he had just won the gold medal a year before. So it was just me, him, and the coaches. And I was like, well, he's 280 pounds. I guess he'll probably go easy on me. I'm 195. And he didn't take it easy. He went after me like he was going for the gold medal, running me all over the place, off the mat, throwing me. And I was like, man, I don't know if I want any part of this anymore.
You're right.
But it was just sink or swim. For the first couple of weeks, there was no like, here's how you do Greco. Here's the positions. You just figured it out by having somebody beat you down. And like, if I'm here and they're snatching my head and throwing me feet up in the air, then maybe I don't keep my head down as much. So a lot of the stuff in Greco, I figured out on the fly.
Right, dude. That's a trip. No, I mean, that's how I trained jiu-jitsu, right? There was like a whole lot less teaching and asking questions, like especially when I was doing grappling in the Marine Corps, it was just, we're going to roll and you're going to learn to, instead of fighting with your head like this, you're going to learn one way or another to do that, you're going to learn to do this.
I mean, but my experience with jiu-jitsu, I came in here and it was like the first like real like classes I was doing to learn jiu-jitsu. I had probably moving around different army bases. I'd go to a gym, check out a class. Wasn't quite ready to lay on my back. It's against my religion as a wrestler. You learn from beginning age, like the first thing you do is get off your back. And like, okay, we're going to start on back. And it's like, I don't know about this.
Yeah.
So I would go to, one class and be like, not really ready for this. I kind of asked around, does anybody want to just do wrestling some other time? So here and there, I would find some guy who would want to do wrestling for a couple of weeks. I'd wrestle them. They'd kind of fade away, and then I'd forget about it for a while, go to somewhere else, go to a class, not ready to lay on my back yet. I'll find someone to wrestle. And then in the last place we live in El Paso for like the last year and a half, I went to an open mat, and the guy who owned it was like, you want to teach some wrestling classes? I was like, yeah, I'll teach some classes. So that was at Fight Sports in El Paso.
Oh, nice.
So I taught some classes, and they had some guys doing Kabate and some other MMA stuff. So I was kind of working wrestling for specific MMA stuff, but no classes. I don't even know if I don't think I had a gi or anything. So I think the first gi I got was here. And the first day I put on a gi, Brian gave me a blue belt. So I come 2 days in no gi, came the third day with a gi, and Brian gave me a blue belt.
Nice. You don't know any of the chokes, nothing. That's funny. Yeah, man. So then, so you've been here, and since you've been here, you were able to get a Masters World Championship,
Yeah.
right? At brown belt.
Yeah. So I won no-gi worlds, purple belt, Masters Worlds, a purple belt. And then brown belt won no-gi worlds, no-gi pans. Didn't compete at any gi and brown belt. But I got promoted last June, so I think I'm getting promoted to black belt next weekend.
Oh, nice,
Hopefully
nice. Hell yeah.
you'll be there.
Yeah.
So, I guess it's white belt to black belt in 4 years, which I think Brian's putting a lot of trust in me, kind of giving me that, knowing I have a lot of holes to fill. Like a lot of it is kind of wrestling, filling a lot of the gaps and then kind of learning on the fly. But I think he also knows I'm moving. And, anywhere you go, you're at a complete restart to them getting to know you. So I think he's putting a lot of trust in me for that. But yeah, white belt to black belt in 4 years, and I've never gotten a stripe. So I feel
Oh, hey, that's a good thing. Those stripes are nonsense.
Yeah,
if you ask me.
Right. Well, you don't get any stripes. No gi anyway. So.
I mean, hey, I really liked my stripes when I was a purple belt. I had a purple belt. I got 3 of them suckers, and one of my favorite things to do was to get them raggedy. Like I wanted my belt to be the most destroyed belt in the whole gym.
Yeah.
And it always felt nice going to an open mat or a competition. And you can just tell by looking at someone's belt. Like maybe some people have a competition belt and they switch them out, but generally everyone has the one belt, and you can just tell by how seasoned someone is by the look at their belt.
Yeah.
So I used to take a lot of pride in my stripes and how dirty my belt was. But now that I don't get them, you really do kind of see it. I just feel like the stripes, they kind of become like this regimen of just like, oh, every 3 to 6 months we're gonna give you a stripe. And then it's like, next thing you know, everyone's being promoted in about 6 to 8 years.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and that's how my kids do it. They have like 10 times more stripes than I've ever got. But they love it. Like when you say like kids, we're getting a promotion stripe, they go crazy. They jump up and down and love it. They're so excited about it. So it's great for kids.
But no, I have to rethink the way that I'm doing kids classes at Underworld because 100%, like I know I got a little handful of kids. I know they would lose it if they felt like they could get a promotion or something. So I just don't know how to figure it out because we just do the rash guards. So it doesn't really make sense of like a uniform thing, but I definitely want to incorporate character building with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, there's something to be said for them feeling like they're developing along the way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, jiu-jitsu is great for kids. I got them in pretty much at the earliest point you can. And it's it's not about like, learn jiu-jitsu because they're going to go compete someday. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But it's keeping them active. It's helping them follow directions. It's learning self-defense. It's a sport. I think it's just great for kids. And, I don't want my kids to have to go through a lot of the things I went through, like adversity and all the things I accumulated in the military. I don't want to have them go through all the adversity. So doing jiu-jitsu is almost like injecting a little bit of adversity into their life to kind of develop them a little bit of a mental toughness and physical toughness that, it's hard to get if they just go to school and they go to like music lessons or something like that. How are they going to develop any skills that allow them to be resilient physically and mentally? So I think this is just kind of injecting something into them that, it helps them develop.
Yeah, like stress inoculation.
Yeah.
A little bit of stress.
I saw like Khabib say, somebody must have asked him a question about, is he going to make his sons like be world champions like he was? And he's like, well, if they come ask me, they want to be a world champion, I'm going to help them. This is what you need to be world champion. But if they say, I don't want to do that, he'll be like, okay, fine. I'm not going to push them, but they're still going to train. And I was like, that's great. I look at it the same way.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like one, you mentioned it about how, we should be living a sedentary lifestyle. We should be active. And so jiu-jitsu satisfies that. And then, so like the biggest thing I notice with the kids that I train is like, At first, when you first train with them, they're so soft and like anything
Yeah.
will like change their mood.
Yeah.
In a couple weeks, dude,
Start
I can
crying.
literally trip them. They'll fall on their face. They'll get up laughing and be like, I'm gonna get you back
Yeah.
with excitement. And it's like, for me, I would definitely not want my kid to have the first time they fall in front of everybody at school in front of all their friends or something, right? Like
No.
these kids fall all the time and it's like not even a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, in the first couple months, at one point, one would be crying. One would like take a bump, fall down hard, and be crying. Sometimes both of them be over sitting on me crying. And now it's like kind of rare that they're crying. They'll take bumps to the head, hit their head hard, have a knee land on their chest, and they'll kind of shake it off. Maybe a little tear here, but they're already building that like physical toughness.
Yeah.
So I mean, I just love everything that jiu-jitsu has to offer kids, and it's the same thing for adults. I mean, I think jiu-jitsu is just great for anybody who can do it. A lot of people just aren't physically capable of doing it. A lot of people just, as kids or whatever they did in their career, didn't develop enough mental toughness so that they would be able to last one period. And you know, some people can't do it, and some people, you know, on the edge come in and they force themselves to do it, and it makes them a better person, makes them tougher, more resilient, and I think it's good for everybody. I never like harass people I know who don't do jiu-jitsu. It's like, you got to do jiu-jitsu, you got to do it, because it can be a miserable experience. A lot of people just aren't physically capable of doing it, and you know, wouldn't be able to stick with it. So.
Yeah, but if they can do it, it ends up being like a complete life changer for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been life changing for me. I mean, I think it's done a lot of things for me. I mean, I got out of the military and basically started doing it. So for me, it filled a big gap in like what I was missing instantly in the military, where you're around a lot of like-minded people who are kind of driven to succeed. I mean, the military attracts a lot of that type of people, and jiu-jitsu attracts a lot of those type of people who want to challenge themselves physically and mentally. So there's a real big overlap on, you see, it's full of like veterans in here. There's tons of people who have been in the military and jiu-jitsu, and that's not a coincidence. It's the same type of person who does it.
Right. Yeah, no, 100%. Well, it's like, you know, people will argue that if you know, about how like Marines they know or Army guys they know are pussies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And even in like inside the Marine Corps, they'll tell you, you know, the martial arts guys are pussies. Like, there's always that stigma, right? But what my answer to that always is like, yes, being a Marine doesn't necessarily make you a badass, and you will meet some assholes. But being in the Marine Corps, you are way more likely to meet the badasses. It's like, not everyone's a badass, 100%. There are some regular people in there.
There's transportation guys who aren't as tough as Rangers in the Army. So, but you carry, and so maybe you carry a little bit of that extra pride being a Marine that you kind of looked out of the Army. But most people go into transportation, and the Marines are nowhere near as tough as Army infantry or Army Rangers.
Right. And I'll tell them too, is like a lot of people made fun of the martial arts programs for like the Marine Corps and the Army. Yeah. And, you know, there's always like a back and forth too between the Marines and the Army about the combative programs and the Marine stuff. I honestly just like the idea that you guys at least were allowing the different competitions to go against each other. Well, I don't know why I say you guys, but the Army guys.
Yeah. Well, that was my last service. So at this point, that was my last service. I always consider myself a Marine first. If somebody asked me what military you did, well, I'm a Marine. I finished in the Army, but I'm a Marine.
Hell yeah. Yeah, well, you should have like a separate freaking classification. You're just,
you know, when I casually run into people, I don't bother giving. I retired from the Army. If they ask a second question, well, I started out in the Marines. Most of the time, I just kind of leave the Air Force part out.
Yeah.
That was almost like I was working at Brightway Insurance or something.
Right, yeah. Well, one question I did want to kind of circle back to that I was thinking about is, man, you're telling me that you took like long breaks off of training and then you're jumping back into wrestling and then you're making these teams, right? So, or somehow staying on a part of the team so you can continue to wrestle. So you just like had that dog in you, or you're just like wanting to keep showing up and keep taking the ass whoopings, or were you a good
Yeah.
learner and you could learn really fast, or what?
So when I walked on the team at Iowa, I mean, I knew I was getting into probably the hardest thing I was ever going to do, and it was terrifying walking in that room because at the time, my second to last year, we had won 7 straight national championships. We had won 20 straight Big Ten championships. So that room was the toughest like in the country for the last 7 years. And previous to that, they had won 9 straight national championships break. And then we were in the midst of like a 7-year national championship run. So that room was so full of like the top guys in college wrestling, plus the guys who were training for the Olympic teams. They called the Hot Club, guys who were wrestling freestyle. So that room was absolutely brutal. And every day it was like, I had no expectations that I was going to ever make the lineup. That wasn't even on my mind. I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to be out in that arena, Carver Hawkeye Arena, in front of 16,000 people. That was kind of unimaginable at that point because I'm like, I just want to survive every day. Mm-hmm. And every day was so brutal. You see tough workouts in jiu-jitsu, people sweating, brawling with. It's a different level of just exhaustion and head banging in wrestling that you don't see. I haven't seen in any jiu-jitsu room. So every day for me was just survival. I'm going to try and get to the next day, get to the next day. And at one, and at a certain point along the way, I kind of realized, I belong here. I'm taking down the starter. I'm holding him down, putting him on his back. I think I realized too late that maybe I could have been a starter. I think I got to my senior year. I was like, you know what? I wish earlier I had put a little bit higher goals on what I could have done. So, I have very few regrets about, things in my life. Everything turned out great. But if I was going to turn back and do things a little bit different, I wish I could have set my goals a little bit higher and realized, I could have been in there. I could have probably been a national champion if I hadn't just been in survival mode and kind of set my goals a little bit higher. But I was a walk-on, and the coaches, they mostly focus on their starters. If you're a walk-on or you're kind of like third guy down, they don't spend as much time with you. They'll yell at you, this and that. But I think part of coaching is really kind of building up people's confidence. And this is what you can be. If you kind of put this work in here, you're good here, keep working on that, but this is what you need to work out. And you could be in the lineup kind of things. I never got that because I was kind of a walk-on. I ended up given a scholarship my senior year. So I got a scholarship at Iowa. But I think at that point, I was still a little bit below those guys. And I wish I had kind of set my sights a little bit higher. And the same for me goes, like I was saying, I walked into the Olympic Training Center, never doing Greco, and I got my ass beat for a long time in there. And I ended up doing it for 7.5 years. And I think toward the end, I started kind of realizing, I'm capable of this. And there was still, these are the toughest guys. They were the top guys. They were the national champions in college. They're continuing their career on in Greco and freestyle. And I'm going against who were the top guys in college, top guys at the next level. So there were still like really tough guys, but I was beating some of them. And, my good years, I paced 7th and 8th. And I shouldn't have been like satisfied with that. I wish I'd kind of set my goals a little bit higher to do even better than that. My last competition was the Olympic trials in 2008. And, I think if I had put more time into it and had more of the confidence of what I was capable of, I think I could have made an Olympic team. Yeah. But I think I realized a little bit too late. And there's some other things, when it comes to training at that level, all the priorities need to be in line. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about like how you train, how you approach the mental part of it, just kind of realizing how much you need to work, and then the social life and a lot of those things. They say moderation for everything. But if you want to be the best in the world, you want to be the greatest, those things have to be out of line. Like your social life has to be here and your focus on your goals have to be up here. And I've watched so many people trying to balance that. And the guys who were the most successful almost shut down a social life. No drinking, no drugs, getting to bed early. And just looking back, I can say pretty strongly, actually, that not doing drugs, not doing any alcohol, can make the difference in somebody who is going to be the top guy, be the Olympic champion, or just be the third-ranked guy. And I know a lot of guys who are really good, really talented, and they go out drinking on the weekends, and they were still really good. But if you were to take away that social part of their life, I think they probably would have been the best. And I just looking back over observing people, at the top level in college and the top level at the Olympic level, the guys who just push down their social life and put all their focus into their training, those are the ones who are the best. Yeah. I feel pretty strongly about that looking back now.
Yeah, man, that's trippy.
Yeah, I mean, not to like bash on like people who go out drinking or smoke weed here and there. Like, do what you want. It's a balance. But how bad do you want to be the best you can possibly be? Because if you look at like drinking, that does not help your training, and not only like for your body, but the recovery afterwards. Like if you go out drinking on a Saturday night, the guys who are the good guys, they're going for a run Sunday morning while you're recovering. Right. So you have to ask yourself, what is alcohol and drugs doing for me? Is it helping me?
Right.
What is it doing for me?
Right.
So it's just kind of balancing that. How great do you want to be? How much fun do you want to have? And I could be critical of myself all day and look back at what I did wrong. But just in observation, I think those things have to be out of skew for you to be great.
Yeah. Because it really does come in like how much time are you putting in? And if you're putting time in somewhere else, somebody out there's hungry.
Yeah. There's always going to be people working harder than you if you are out socializing. Man, like I love socializing. I probably love socializing more than I actually like the training. I like both, but my social life, I'll admit, probably came first. Yeah, I love training, love competing, but I love having fun too.
Yeah. Well, that's the Marine in you, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. You can't. I couldn't ditch that. That's one of those things you look back and I would have changed some things.
Yeah, no, I feel that, dude. Well, so I want to, real quick sidetrack. I want to ask you about the McGregor versus Chandler fight.
Yeah.
Dude, I love McGregor. I thought he was, I mean, dude, I doubted him in those first couple fights, and then he knocked out Jose Aldo, and then I've been on the Conor train since then, but I just do not see how he's going to be able to come and beat up Michael Chandler. Like,
he's not going to.
I don't think
he's not going to. Yeah. I mean, Conor is a striker. Chandler is a wrestler. He was wrestled in Missouri, and Chandler can take a punch. So if you can take a punch that Conor throws and you can take him down, get on top, you see what Nurmagomedov did to him. You take him down and you can absolutely destroy him. I don't think Conor at this point is grinding, working on his wrestling, for hours every day. I think he's kind of in like, this is what worked for me. But I think he's going to be surprised that Chandler takes his punches and then he's going to take him down.
Yeah. I mean, obviously Conor has that maybe like puncher's chance in the first round, but as the match goes on, it's just going to favor Chandler heavier.
The way I can see it going the other way is a lot of wrestlers like fall in love with knocking people out. Mm-hmm. So you see a lot of wrestlers kind of abandon their wrestling and they just want to throw that right hand. And wrestlers develop a lot of right hand strength because you're pulling underhooks, you're snapping heads, so you develop, I think, a little bit extra strength, and then guys just want to you fall in love with that knockout. So he in his own head, he probably wants to knock Connor out. But if he wants to win, he can take him down and still knock him out on the ground. So I guess see how that turns out.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, McGregor's got that ability to kind of like lull people into like trying to strike with him.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
But I think like you're saying, the partying and the drinking. I mean, he's going to all the rich people parties, drinking all the liquor. So it's
I mean, his
chances.
See the videos of him looking a little impaired. How's it going? We got wrestling at 11. Well,
I've never been to one of the wrestling classes. Do you need wrestling shoes?
No, you don't need wrestling shoes. I mean, you could hang out, stretch. We're just talking a little bit more.
Yeah. And Khabib had brought that up in their last fight. He said that he could smell alcohol in his breath. He's like, no way you're ready for 5 rounds. And it's just like, that's like the moment, right? You're like face to face with this dude you're going to go to war with. And you can just, the fact that, I mean, if you watch it too, like, usually, I like to watch the weigh-ins because I feel like I can really tell a lot about what's about to happen in the fights because you can see people's confidence and their look. And one of the first things I always look for is like the stare down. Like, have they done the work that they're willing to stare in another man's eyes? Like, I'm ready to kill you. And McGregor, all the other ones, he was like in their eyes. That one dude, he was like looking all over the place and kind of moving, and you could just tell he had nervous energy. And Khabib was just staring at him straight through his soul. And I was like, ugh, it's not looking good.
And I think Connor might be a good example of somebody who put in the work, kind of had that social training balance in place, and then it fell out of place. And I think that's why he hasn't had so much success, because things got out of balance for him. Mm-hmm. But I don't put too much stake in this stare downs. I mean, that's kind of a show. I mean, you kind of look, once they start getting tired, you look for the look on their face.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell where somebody's mind is going a lot of the times once they start getting tired, because, fatigue makes cowards of us all.
100%.
So you can stand there and make the meanest faces all you want, but once you're on the mat and somebody is putting that pressure on you, you start getting tired. All the staring isn't going to do you any good.
Right.
You have to dig down in your mind and, realize what do you want? Like, that makes you question everything when you're getting beat down early. You start questioning things.
Right. And then this kind of circles back into something I wanted to bring up earlier before I got on the McGregor thing, but just like the training difference in wrestling and jiu-jitsu. You said, like, you've never been to a training room in jiu-jitsu where they're going anywhere close to as hard as they are in wrestling. And man, even so, I train up in Conroe, and there's a good wrestling school. I guess Willis is like really big on wrestling out there. And so I've had a couple teenagers come in from the local wrestling schools just to check us out. Yeah. And I can't take you down, but I could do some takedowns. Okay. So I'll mix it up with them a little bit. And it's just so funny, man, their demeanor and their like body. Like this 12-year-old like shakes my hand. Like, it's kind of fun. It's a little exaggerated, but he's like, my name's Colt. And I'm like, what's up, Colt? They all got cool names too, which cracks me up.
Well, here's the difference. Like, wrestling is in high schools, college, Olympics. It's all focused on competition. So the rooms are a lot more competitive because everything is preparing you for a competition. In jiu-jitsu, you got people they want to get in shape. They want to learn a little self-defense within just one practice. You might have guys who compete, and you might have guys first day walking in. So each class is kind of tailored, a little bit of everything for everybody. And in a wrestling room, everybody in that room is focused on competition. So the room is real competitive. And whether you're a starter or you're a backup guy, even the backup guy, you're preparing the guys who are getting ready for competition. So everything is focused on the next competition. So it gets really competitive. We're kind of thinking about, how do you get ready, be the most prepared for a competition? And here it's like, we're a great environment. We're making friends. We're shaking hands and, smiling and everything. In most wrestling rooms, it's not like that at all. It's a different environment. Like, I walked into the Iowa wrestling room and nobody's coming up, shaking my hand. Hey, my name's such and such. What's your name? Nobody's being that nice to you.
Yeah.
And, a lot of wrestling rooms, it's all competition based. You prove yourself, in the room and on competition. You have to prove yourself. And here, you don't have to prove anything. You're here because it's a great community. You're in shape. You're building your physical and mental resilience. But it's supposed to be fun. Wrestling, a lot of times, it's not supposed to be that fun. You're preparing to represent your school or your country, or your coaches at the Olympic Training Center. So it's a different mindset. So you'll see. I mean, I'm sure you've seen like wrestlers or just wrestlers come in here and they're going 100 miles per hour. You might be like, I'm not feeling that great today. I'm gonna go about 65%. A wrestler's not gonna go 65%.
Yeah, they go
And
hard
it's the same
time.
thing in the room. Like I can come in here and be like, my joints a little sore today. I think I'm gonna go a little bit easy. In a wrestling room, if you're like, I'm gonna go a little bit easy, you're gonna get your ass beat. Nobody's gonna feel sorry for you. If you're having a bad day, they're gonna make it a worse day. So it's just it's a different environment. I'm sure, I see there's some places like Gracie Ball, West Chase that looks like they get after it. And there's some competition focused places like that. And I haven't seen it in person, but I don't think it stacks up to what a wrestling room is and the intensity you have always getting ready for competition.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, dude, I know we're gonna do wrestling class.
Yeah.
Here in a couple minutes, so I'll go ahead and wrap this up. But I do want to ask you one last question. What would be your advice for someone who is like maybe finds inspiration from your story and maybe they want to try to maybe they're doing well and they want to do better, or maybe they're trying to get their life on track? What would be just the biggest piece of advice that you've always stuck to and has helped you out?
Have fun. If you kind of dread this, then it kind of makes it a burden on you. You want to kind of see this as something that makes your life better through getting yourself in shape and being a part of the community. And that's the best part of jiu-jitsu. I mean, I walked in here, I'm just going to come here, get a workout, stay in shape. And what it turned into is I've met so many great people, a part of community, all gyms, and this gym becomes almost like your family.
Yeah.
So it comes with a lot of different things. Have fun with it and embrace what the jiu-jitsu community is and enjoy kind of that like-minded. You're at the inner circle of jiu-jitsu here. Everybody else walking around there doing taekwondo or going to Orange Theory, they're in the outer circle. This is the inner circle.
Yeah.
And, no matter how many times you have a conversation about this guy was in on my leg and I rolled through here, it might get repetitive, but that's the fun of it. You're in this inner circle that people speak your language and have the same mental mindset. So it's fun. Have fun with it. And everything else that comes, if you have competition, enjoy that. If you just have a community, enjoy that. Have fun.
Yeah, dude, I appreciate you saying that, because I was literally just like, man, I could be training harder. I was like, he's right. I gotta do less socializing, more training. But nah, yeah.
But it's all what your goals are, what your priorities are, and if you want to compete and be the best, then maybe you change some things in line and pick out the hardest guys that you can train with. Hunt them down and make them beat you down until you pick up everything. It's all what your goals are.
Yeah. I think I came to a realization a while ago. It's I don't want to be the best, but I do want to train with the best. I want to find the most savage and just say that I was in there and I tried my best to hang with them, because when you see the lifestyle that they live, jiu-jitsu probably not, I would argue not as hard as trying to make the wrestling teams for Olympic trials and stuff like that. But when you see the life that they live, you're like, man, this guy has nothing except the mats, and it's is that the life that you want? Because that's what it takes.
You got to make that decision.
Yeah. Well, Conrad, I appreciate you coming on. Thank y'all for tuning in. Appreciate you, buddy. And catch you guys later.